Okay, I'm making you the host again.
Okay, thank
And
you.
if you're moving around to different rooms, make sure you make a student the host before you
I'm
do
going
that.
to make my timekeeper now host. So Elise, I'm going to give you all the power of this room. Okay, so be careful. Don't leave it, huh?
Okay, great. Solis, do you have the link for Carrie Norman's review?
Yeah,
Because
it's pasted on the chat, but I'm going to paste again.
yeah, can you paste it again? Because I don't think I had the right link.
Okay, sorry. Here you have.
Thank you. See you
Okay.
later.
See you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I'm also going to paste our concept board before to start our presentations on chat. I don't know if Andrew, Judith, or Elena has any question before to start. No?
There might be some after we see the first project, but maybe we'll just see. I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. And the students, do you have any question? Not? Okay, so Elise, even if it's 6 minutes earlier than the schedule, I think that we can start. Okay? So whenever you want, I will be managing to your time.
Okay.
Try to enjoy because it's our final review. We have been working really hard during the whole semester and now we need to enjoy, okay? And this is for everybody. You need to be relaxed, explaining your project, and also try to learn about the feedback of the juries, okay?
All right. See.
Hopefully, at least we'll all be in the same room next year.
Okay, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I am ready. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elise Macy. I'm a second-year undergrad student in San Jose Studio, and this is the Green Collective, a housing project based around growing and selling of organically, locally grown food. Here's the main isometric that kind of shows the differing heights of all the towers. So each tower is like a 3-block tower with a core in the center. So this project started by analyzing past projects such as the horizontal home and the sectional home. And two things that were kind of brought through to the collective aggregation are kind of big wall windows, which you could see here in the horizontal home, and double high ceilings and a spiral staircase from the sectional home with a cantilevered first floor, which we'll see that later on. So observing the site, here's a 9-block grid, which shows our block in the middle before the aggregation. And here it is with the collective housing unit placed on it. There's a school on the block to the south. And on the north side of our block, there's a steakhouse and a coffee shop. So when analyzing the site, there's a proposed after-school center on the southwest side of the block that faces the school across the street. And there's a juice bar and a sandwich shop placed in between the coffee shop and the steakhouse on the north side of the block. So for the type of community, the Green Collective is focused on lush greenery and like organically grown fruits and vegetables to sell and interact with the community surrounding, because it's in the Garden District in New Orleans. So it's very just kind of blends in with its surroundings. So how it works, here's the main isometric again. Here's a diagram that kind of shows how one module was turned or stacked on itself and turned into kind of the main plan, which you can see at the end here in blue. Oh no, okay. Here's a diagram showing the existing vegetation before the aggregation and the proposed vegetation and shade, which there's also been umbrella structures kind of placed around the block that are also used for water collection to water the gardens. Here's a circulation diagram with like the blue dot showing the vertical cores that are placed in each module, and kind of circulation from all directions to get to those cores. And you can also see the triangles kind of show circulation around the horizontal cores in between each house. And here is kind of the main pathway on the ground floor that circles around the garden in the center. So for ground floor kind of division, there's this kind of like public, which is on kind of the outer edge of the main aggregation, and the garden in the middle is more just based for the community, not really the public. And on a typical floor, you can see the blue is the private houses and the green is the community. So that's the horizontal core where neighbors can kind of communicate and talk to each other and say hi as they're coming up the stairs. This is kind of a diagram that shows different areas, I call them like hubs of the aggregation. So you have marketplaces in the light blue where they can have like farmers markets on the weekends to sell the fruits and vegetables that are grown. The blue is like water collection centers where you saw those umbrella structures earlier. The green, the dark green is kind of storage for gardening tools that are placed all the way around the main gardens that's in the middle. The lime green on the top is where you saw the juice bar and the sandwich shop in between the existing steakhouse and coffee shop. And the purple is, again, the after school center that's placed right there, which you can also see in the ground floor plan at a more detailed scale. So you can kind of see how everything interacts. So you can see the vertical cores placed in each module all the way around the plan. You can see the storage rooms, bike storage, elevator. Here's, you can kind of see the garden and the umbrella structures again. Here's a typical floor plan where you can see kind of like the interaction of all the different typologies placed together. Again, you can see the vertical core placed in each module that goes all the way up each tower. And here's a fourth floor plan where you can see rooftop gardens, and you can also see their interaction with kind of the double height ceilings, like the second floor of the large units. And again, sorry, you can access those rooftop gardens through the vertical core that goes up all those towers. Here's the first section that shows kind of the division of space and the varying heights of ceilings. So you can see the double high unit here, another large unit, and these small units that hold the stairs that go all the way up, where you can access the rooftop gardens. Here's another section that again shows double high over here. You can see the large garden in the center, and these are these horizontal cores. And here's a third section showing kind of the cantilever ground floor right here, and a couple large units with some smaller units. Here's the main isometric again. So for experience, here's the first perspective that shows these vertical gardens that are kind of like wooden structures placed on the facades of the units that kind of shade from direct sun coming straight in, because you know it can get kind of hot. Here is a perspective showing kind of the rooftop garden experience. I kind of wanted it to be like an interactive like community experience, so neighbors can talk to each other and enjoy the gardens. A third perspective showing the main garden in the center and the cantilevered first floor where the path exists to walk all the way around the garden in a shaded area. And a last perspective that's looking out at the central garden out of a double high, and you can see kind of like from the other side of this vertical garden right here, throwing on the outside of the window. Okay, so for typologies, the first one is a small 1-bedroom unit with you can see the entryway on the left side right here. And down here in this logo, all the blue, that's where each unit of this small unit is located. And the small unit houses the vertical core, which you can see the stairs and the elevator. And in each unit, there's no windows facing the walkway, just to provide privacy for the occupants. There's a medium unit that's 2 bedrooms. Again, you can see where each of those is placed down here in the plan. The first large unit is 3 bedroom with a spiral staircase and a double high for like those big long windows you saw in the perspectives. And here's the second large typology, which is 4 beds. So basically just instead of the double high, you have an extra bedroom. Here's a zoomed in of one of those modules that I was talking about. You can see it down here, that's that one. So you have in each tower, in each 3-tower block, you have the vertical core that goes all the way up the tower. And then from there, when you exit, you can locate your apartment and talk to your neighbors at the same time. So my exploded axon is on the concept board because you can't put the link in the PowerPoint. Here's my main isometric again. And that's all. Thanks for listening.
Could you please, Elise, share the concept board and show us your exploded axon?
Yes, I can do that. Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay. Very big concept board.
Okay, for the rest of the students, instead to open the concept board, maybe it's better to have the MP4 ready and you close your PDF and you open your MP4, right?
It's just taking a long time to load, I think, because there's.
Yeah, I think that it's better if you, do you have the MP4 on your computer, Elise?
I do. Let's see. I don't know why it isn't going now. It just won't-
Elise, you might want to turn off the cursor.
Video.
Well, I was going to, just our little arrows, or you may not want to look at
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay,
once
let's
you're
see.
done with everything else.
No. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and turn off those arrows.
I have it pulled up if you want me to share my screen with it.
Oh, can you? That would be so
We will
helpful.
appreciate that, Cole.
Awesome. So that's kind of just the stacking of one of those modules that I was talking about, where you can see the cantilever first floor and the rooftop gardens on the top.
I have a question, Elise. On the lowest level, on the
Yeah.
grade level, you have 2 volumes there. What's the program in those? Are those housing or are those other things?
No, there's no housing on the ground floor.
Mhm.
So the volume on the back would probably just be like, that would be the vertical core that goes all the way up that tall tower.
Mhm.
And then the smaller one with the cantilever would just be like tool storage for the garden.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, would you like us to start, Sansalas?
Yeah, of course. We love.
I'll roll into it. Well, thank you, Elise, for getting us started. I think your scheme has a lot of clarity to it, and the drawings are quite lovely. It also has a kind of playful quality, which I'm not sure if that was directly intentional, but it's certainly something that I perceive. When you look at the core unit that you were just sharing in the animation, it reminds me a bit of the logic of the kind of cruciform towers that were developed in the early by Le Corbusier and then taken over by others as a new housing typology in the city that maximized light and air to the dwellings. Yours is more of a Y than an X. And I think you've been very clever to have the central part an open air courtyard rather than a solid stair and elevator core, because that obviously makes this typology much more social and arguably much more appropriate in a pandemic and post-pandemic world. Fresh air, sunlight, it all seems like a good idea. I also like the way you've lifted it up off the ground and not placed housing there. I think that both works very well in New Orleans, but also fits your concept of emphasizing the garden. If I had one criticism to offer, it might be that the relationship to the streets and the nature of the garden spaces, you articulated a distinction between those on the inside and those on the outside. And that's good, but that kind of public-private relationship is a little bit tricky in these kinds of situations where, a big part of your site is given over to the public, but but there's not a kind of threshold or boundary that, and that may have been part of your intention, but that's an observation that I might make.
Hi, can I start? Okay.
Yeah, and also if Elise want to share the PDF, if you need to go through different slides, that will be fine, Elise.
Yeah. Let me do that real quick.
Go ahead, Elena. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Elise. That was a great presentation. I was in the studio last year, so I know the work that you have been doing during the semester. I know that it's a very intense studio with many projects, small scale, and then jumping to the large scale is really difficult sometimes. But I think that with the methodological process that is proposed in the studio, the aggregation system, I think the result in your project is really, really good. I mean, your proposal has achieve a housing building that is really interesting, and I think that it can be understood as a system, not that you can even continue working on it and developing and changing, but with the same rules. I miss also, as you say, maybe a little more, in my opinion, a little more development of the exterior spaces in their relation with the city. So the distinction between which is exterior and interior, or private or public, and maybe there is, I think there is one piece that is for the community that is apart from the building. I think that maybe for the completeness of the project, it could have some kind of relationship, morphological or some kind of relation with it, so that you know that it's part of the project, no? But I think that, for example, the fact that you have only 3 heights or a small height, even if it's a completely different way of building in relation with the surroundings, it's respectful with the neighborhood. So I think that it fits quite well, considering it's a completely different condition, that not individual houses, but collective housing, and I think that it fits really well with the neighborhood and the site. What else? Yes, maybe I think that next steps will be maybe a little more work on the facade and the materiality of the project, and maybe with something that I miss in the units, it's in the distribution of the different units, maybe a little more study of privacy between the spaces and between the rooms and the bathrooms, the connections and so on. But all in all, I think that the project seems to work really well. It can be very flexible to adapt to different circumstances. No, that I think. Yeah, but I like the project a lot, and congratulations.
Elise, I think Elena and Judith have said some things about the site and the ground plan. I think I'm going to agree with those. And I want to, if we're all in the concept board, some of those things that I wanted to talk about are, well, first a question, and then that'll lead into the comments. There's some instances, if everybody's on the ground floor site plan, where I feel like either here over to the right, item number 3, or room number 1.
I can come back to it real quick.
Actually, the concept board would be a little better, so I can draw, because we draw.
Okay.
Is there
would
any way
would
you
you
could
like
do
to
that?
share?
Or I can share, you can share, either one.
Could you share it? Would that work?
Certainly.
Okay. It's taking a long time to load on my laptop.
That's all right. So does everybody see the concept board plan? Some things that my question was, I know you started, that's the tricky part of the studio that I love so much, is you started with a module and you created this tripartite module. And then when you started putting on the site, it looks like you started having some incidents where, maybe these little spatial conditions started causing you trouble. Was there ever a moment where you thought, oh, I've got to rethink the triangle, or what if I go redesign the module? Maybe that would free up some space, or did you just say, well, I've got to lean into this module and try and fit it? Was there ever, in this process, did you ever go back to the beginning and adjust the single module once you put it on site? Because that kind of sounds like architecture, right? To go back and forth at different scales. Yeah.
Well, I started out with the kind of the 3-tower block. I had my horizontal, like the scale of my horizontal house stacked around that triangle, but the scale of that was larger. So I scaled down to kind of the scale of my sectional house, which is smaller, and stacked that around the block. But then, like you said, once I'd made it the big plan, like I was running into corners like this, and with Professor Vela, we would like rotate it a little bit this way, but then this corner is rotated.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a tight squeeze, and yeah, there's a few problems like that. But I figured I don't really think, since there's so much like walkway area in the ground floor with the cantilevers, that I don't really think that anybody would be walking through like next to that house or like this one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about
then what, or go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say there's this dorm kind of close to mine that has kind of points that are right next to the street. And it's really interesting to walk past that point because all of a sudden it's like this open space. So that's what I was thinking about, how that one would work. But
and I love that. And what I was going to say is, I don't mind if you're locked into this. I think the biggest criticism I would have, like if you had a few more minutes on the project, was you have these beautifully rigorous individual house plans at the second and third floor. I think spending that time on a site plan would just drive the project home and probably alleviate some of these conditions that, you know, if there is a unique condition, maybe do something in the site. You know, if this is public, make this look different from this. Somebody had said something like, maybe these are paved more, or maybe there's something about them that's more external than, like right now, I know there's a big difference. I should change colors, right? There's supposed to be conceptually a big difference between this space and the orange spaces, but in your site plan, they look identical to me. And so I think there are these moments where you can start to mess with the site plan to do that. Like moments where this might be a different project. I love that this was almost that. I mean, and I would like it to be that. So your project would dance back into history of the site itself, but then introduce this thing. That's what I think is so brilliant about the three legs, this three-legged scheme, is that when you start to put it on site, look how close that was. I think I would have started cheating, because your project not only is playful, but it also dances in the history of the site itself and this original lot lines and historical structure of the project that I feel like, I'm not saying like get all quiet, but there's just so many instances where it feels like that it's mindful and respectful of the original, but also being playful, all based on this module. I mean, I think that's brilliant, based on this little 3-part module. I just would love to see the site, you know, celebrate that maybe this is a patio to sort of tie in these holdouts. You're kind of instead of saying, well, this is fanciful, but ignore these holdouts because they don't fit very well, design this site plan where you embrace the holdouts and you make them part of the last nerd things I would talk about are, I love the idea of the cantilever, but you've put the columns right in this main circulation that I think was supposed to be internal. And I think if you had like 10 minutes, literally, I would put those columns just about 10 feet back. This is something that Judith blasted my students for. So I actually should probably give her credit for it. Like, because you said cantilever, but it's not cantilevered because you have columns out here. But if you pull those columns back, open that hallway, and even you could put like a 1-step drop. I know y'all talked about ADA, but if this was just a step, it would be a great place to sit and look to the interior courtyard inside these, and it would identify that circulation, you know, sort of and again, bring focus from all these sides into that special interior courtyard.
Yeah, I think those are good comments, Andrew and Elena. I would reinforce that by, if you can scroll the concept board to one of the sections.
Ooh, I forgot I'm in charge. I love being in charge. Section, there we go.
Thank you. You know that New Orleans is a flat, a flat world, Elena, but Elise, I think I got it wrong. But it's not that flat. And inevitably, and you know, we talked about this last semester, I think, that although our site was much steeper last semester, you need to work that line. And this is a very general comment for everyone. Because even the distinction of a 6-inch curb, a rain garden that slopes gently in, as Andrew said, a low wall that you might be able to sit on as a bench. Those kinds of things are crucial both to the experience of the ground, but also the management of water and things like that. So, you know, it's a complicated project. You didn't have time to do everything, but I might develop that line a little bit before I put it into my portfolio, because of course it wouldn't take you very long to simply create, you wouldn't even have to change the site plan, subtle adjustments. And then the last thing I'll say, because we're probably going over time, is the sidewalk. You have have, in a sense, erased it. Well, you have really erased the sidewalk. You know, in New Orleans, sometimes they are a little bit
Sorry.
discontinuous because of the lack of public good, but they're always sort of there, but maybe partially erased. And I would question that. I mean, I understand that you're making more paving and more public, but don't you kind of need a paved edge beyond the curb that allows you to walk through the neighborhood without walking into the street?
Yeah.
Curb, this is the curb line, is that correct? And there's no, this is the street? Or is the sidewalk right here?
I believe that's the street. I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure, but.
So I'm going to play Jane Jacobs. I don't know if you know who Jane Jacobs was, but an urbanist, Life and Death of American Cities, the sidewalk is the sort of cornerstone of urbanity. Now you can change it, and logically in your concept you kind of have, but if you simply because you pulled this sort of carpet of paving into the heart of your project, but I think you can transform it, but you can't erase it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And those were two, that's kind of, that's probably more thing I was trying to say is, I think if these became sort of plaza-like, because they're public, you're transforming the sidewalk, right? The fact that, I know you're like, it's just a simple tone decision I made 5 seconds before the deadline, but by making these green, like the middle ones green, you know, if you'd have simply made these, whatever's complementary on the color wheel from green, we wouldn't be able to say any of these because suddenly you would have said, you know, you could have argued that this is the sidewalk, this beautifully sort of abstract shape working your way around, you know, this has now become the sidewalk, which maybe Judith would have said, what a beautiful sidewalk. Like what a wildly activated sidewalk.
Yeah, how generous. And then you could carve out of it areas for greenery and trees, but then you would maintain that edge condition so that if I were walking my dog or whatever, and I wanted to maintain my, you know, pace on the periphery, I could.
And maybe those carved areas dance between that historic grid of the holdouts and the original lot lines and your contemporary imposition, which is what we were talking about on the site plan earlier.
Right. But these comments are not in any way intended to suggest that, you know, the core scheme isn't really strong. So, you know, just some additional things to think about.
Yes, also as a reference that Judith was mentioning Le Corbusier, we can see that you started working on the roof, so those fit facades that you start working on can enrich the project a lot, and the different heights with the tallest in the middle. I think that it was a good point to use the roofs, and then you could also start working with the relationship between the units and those triangles of the community spaces, no? The nodes or the connections between the different units, and also the relation with between the transparency of the complete building, no? As Andrew was drawing those plazas and the transparency through the building to the interior, no? The different grades of publicity or privacy.
We have still left 3 minutes, huh? If you want to wrap up, or at least you want to ask them something to improve even your portfolio. I think I really agree with all the feedback, and also you can improve your portfolio. Remember, try to make your ground floor, your site plan as you have mentioned on your diagram. The different space, the quality of the space, also the sidewalk. So I think that you have room to improve the portfolio, which is really important.
Yeah.
I think
these are all very good points, and obviously stuff that I didn't think about that's getting brought up. So thank you guys.
This is way in the weeds in the last 60 seconds. I probably shouldn't even say it, but that spiral staircase is driving me crazy. It's the only circular thing in your entire strategy and plan. And either I think it needs to be, or like, you've done, either it needs to be orthographic, or maybe it can be obtuse. And, even maybe, if you're going to make an interesting shape, maybe you make one that aligns with the geometries that you're trying to establish, rather than introduce a third one. I know a spiral stair is efficient and small, and maybe that's why it was, but just sort of leaning into that strategy. Right now, it's sort of, it sits pretty obviously different, it feels like, in the plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'll take advantage of this moment to give my diatribe against spiral stairs, which
we talked about before. I set it up.
you sure did. And thank you for following through, Andrew. Well, obviously you can use a spiral stair in the internal workings of an apartment. I do think it is permissible you can't use them in other settings, more public. However, you cannot move up and down that stair without looking at your feet and holding onto the rail. It's a very difficult form of vertical movement, and you can't take any furniture up and down it. Now, you have a double height space, so presumably you can hoist it up that way. But I live in an apartment with a spiral staircase, so I totally understand everything you're saying. You get it.
Move out in a couple of weeks is going to be difficult, but.
Well, you can make maybe a big window that opens up in a hook like the Dutch have in Amsterdam to move furniture in and out. But still, I actually think that if you're going to have them, they could be smaller. You should check the diameter of the one that you have in your apartment, because usually they are maybe at most 5 feet, 60 inches in diameter in this kind of setting.
Okay, so time out. I'm so sorry, but we need to move to the next one. Okay, I'm gonna leave. Andrea is here, so
yes, hello.
Thank you very much.
All so much.
Andrea.
Okay, share my screen. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
One more time.
No.
Talk one more time. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, Charlotte, I think you may need a new microphone.
Let me just. Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Great. Little technical difficulties. So hi, I'm Charlotte Aiken, and I will be discussing the design I have proposed for a co-housing community in Uptown New Orleans. I decided to name the community Uptown Farm because of the presence of 2 large farms on the site, which residents may take advantage of through a communal farming program. Communal farming is good for the environment, and this block lies in a food desert, meaning that there is no large grocery store in walking distance. When developing the design, I made use of different aspects of previous housing projects. The horizontal home, which can be seen on the left, has a central courtyard, emphasizing the need for accessible outdoor space. The vertical home in the center challenged me to design small spaces that maintain functionality, and the sectional home on the right incorporates balconies that overlook a courtyard area. I attempted to include each of these elements in the design for the co-housing community. I drew mostly from the sectional home, which could be easily reimagined to create larger apartments instead of individual rooms. For this project, I began working with a grid, and I used a similar grid when designing the co-housing community. I also continued to use the idea of a larger footprint for the upper floors, which creates covered patio spaces on the ground level, which can be seen in the axon on the right. Using aspects from my previous housing projects, I developed a base unit, which is made up of 1 small unit, 1 medium, and 1 large, and then a vertical stair core. The diagram on the right indicates the different units in gray and the stair and communal balcony space in black. With 3 units in each base unit and 20 base units throughout the site, there are 60 units total in the community. The small unit is a 1-bedroom studio apartment, which would be ideal for young professionals or students. There are 20 small units throughout the site on both the 2nd and 3rd floors. And it can be seen in the diagram with the orange outline. The medium unit is a 2-bedroom apartment, ideal for students or smaller families. There are also 20 of these throughout the site. And the large unit is a 4-bedroom apartment, ideal for larger families or groups of students. And there are also 20 throughout the site. The site is located in Uptown New Orleans and is surrounded mostly by homes. Because of this, I chose to limit the height of the community to a 3-story structure. A few businesses are scattered in the area, and the community includes a few businesses as well. This diagram indicates the homes in the surrounding blocks in purple and the businesses in green, and then a school across the street in yellow. This is the 2nd floor plan, where you can see that the base unit is repeated throughout the site on both the 2nd and 3rd floors. This repetition creates 5 courtyards and pockets of larger green space on the ground floor. The 3rd floor plan is very similar to the 2nd floor, except for increased balcony space on the 2nd floor, which is created by the ground floor footprint. The diagram on the left indicates the apartment size distribution throughout the site. The diagram in the center shows the constructed green space, so the courtyards, balconies, and the farms. And then on the right, it indicates the shared versus private space on the upper floors. So most of the floors are private, except for the vertical cores and a small shared balcony space surrounding the elevator and stairs. This is the ground floor plan, which derives its geometry from the upper floors. Public amenities include a gym, library, restaurant, cafe, and a market. And there are also spaces that are shared only among the residents, including 3 communal kitchens, workspaces, meeting rooms, lounge areas, and a classroom. I will now go through a series of detailed plans for each of the ground floor amenities, beginning with those that can be accessed by the public. This is the library, which is identified by the orange outline on the ground floor plan to the left. This is the gym, it's up at the top, the market, the restaurant, and the cafe, which each surround the 2 farms, given that food from these farms is intended to be used at the market, the restaurant, and the cafe. The following plans are only accessible by residents. So here's 2 of the lobbies and 1 of the communal kitchens, and then 1 of the 2 farms. The diagram on the left indicates the ground floor circulation and vertical core locations. The center shows the areas of unconstructed green space where native plants can grow. These areas have the opportunity to be developed into rainwater retention systems where needed. And then the diagram on the right indicates the shared versus public areas on the ground level, with the shared areas in light purple and the public areas in dark purple. This is an axonometric diagram, which combines information from the previous plan diagrams. So the pink indicates the ground floor circulation, the dark green is the 2 farm locations, and the light green locates the green space. This is another axonometric diagram, which indicates the locations of the different units in varying shades of gray, as well as the exposed structure at different balcony areas in yellow. This is an east-west section, which cuts through one of the farms, various apartments, as well as the library, market, and restaurant. This is the north-south section, which cuts through the gym and patio space on the ground floor and shows the barrier of green space that exists between the community and one of the pre-existing homes on the block. This perspective shows one of the entrances, as well as the cage structure above the private balconies on the 2nd and 3rd floors. This perspective is taken from one of the private balconies looking down onto the street below. And this perspective looks across one of the courtyards onto the 3rd floor. And then my animated axonometric is on concept board, but I can switch my screen to share that. Let's So it just shows the different pieces kind of and how they go together on the site, starting with the floor, the second, and then the third floor.
Great. Charlotte,
Will you tell me where you are on the concept board, Jude? That's all.
Yeah. Let's see.
that's always tricky.
I'm on the second from the bottom, the third one in.
Second. That was well orientated. Second from the bottom, third one in. Got it. Okay.
I had a quick question. I'll let others start with comments, but what is the module? You seem to have a kind of base module that many of the rooms take on. What's its dimension?
The dimension of the entire module?
Well, no, like if I look at it seems like I'm looking at your plans, I see bedrooms and a stair core and a kitchen module and a living room module, all about, well, not about, exactly the same size. And so I was curious about what that size was.
Oh, okay. I see what you're asking now. So each little module is 4.5 feet by 8 feet.
Okay, so often they're two together, so that would be 9 by 8. Is that the dimension of, say, this bedroom?
9 by, yes, 9 by 8.
Okay, that was my question.
Maybe I'll hold on. I want to see y'all's faces, but I also want to see my concept board. I don't mind giving a start, and it was kind of based on Judith's clarification question, because when you look at the site plan, the overall site plan, it's frenetic, like it's wildly frenetic, and the module is almost completely concealed. Like I'm looking at the second. That site plan's clear. Yeah, this second story site plan is just, it almost feels like there is this texture and this grid pattern sort of going all the way across the site. And the most clear, I see the scheme, like my shoulders relax and I breathe a sigh when you go down to the axon, the toned axon on the lower left. I think it's one of your strongest drawings because it's kind of clear maybe what these modules are and what the different and how these things are broken up. Was there we saw with Elise's, there was like a playful intention, an obvious sort of shape making. Was there is there like an ethos or an aesthetic intention to it that is frenetic? Or was it just, is that a byproduct of what we've seen? It almost looks like, the Matrix itself, the Matrix, the movie, right? With all the dots and dropping bits and zeros and ones in the site plan. There is not a clear organization, I would argue, and maybe you can please either disagree with me or whichever.
Yeah, well, I definitely played around with how the different base units are arranged quite a bit. That took up a good deal of the project itself, moving those around and changing the sizes of the courtyards as well. But
talk about it in response to, like, if I challenged you that I find it wildly disorienting, right? And it could be on purpose, like, just in contrast, hers is, I'm just saying it's a different project. Elise has a clear half circle, right? And you're either on the inside of it or the outside of it. This has these courtyards that are totally concealed and they're not even clear signifiers how to get to them. They almost stumble upon them, right? Is that this ethos you were trying for?
Yes. So I kind of wanted it to be like this whole meandering series of pathways and rooms. Just I thought that it kind of worked with having so many units in one block. It made it kind of private how you would find your own place in this whole community. But I liked the idea of having it be meandering throughout the site as opposed to just like buildings lining the streets, how you would typically find it.
I think maybe then that's what when I saw that axon with tones on it, I feel like that's my wayfinding device. And I know it was just tones. And then I don't think it became texture in your axon, in your perspectives. And maybe that would be a good way to sort of dance between the two, that maybe you use material as a way to maybe, articulate these walkways, or to make sure we know what's public or private, or one tower from another. And if you were going to lean in, and maybe this is not so much, the ground floor feels so quiet in the site plan and response. And I know it's a no-no, but if we go to the second floor plan with the site plan in it, I almost feel like, go down to the second floor plan. Isn't that the second? This is the second floor, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe if the site itself also spoke the same language, it might feel a little more cohesive. Instead of one giant farm, maybe it's 6 smaller, like break, I forget which one to draw on. Maybe if this giant farm is broken up into more of the language of the units themselves, you could also break it into crops, or break it into seasonal, or break it into ownership. It's another way that you could tie the site into this concept of, these are, fall crops, or these are, I don't know, like just some way. And maybe if instead of that large one, I was trying to draw on your shared screen, maybe if it became smaller ones, it would start to speak a little more. This is another one like Elise's. I feel like the site doesn't respond to the architecture, at least. And that's why y'all could challenge me that I'm making my point on the second floor. And when you look at the ground floor on the site plan, maybe they're a little more quiet, which then I would go back and challenge you on kind of the discord between the ground floor and the second floor, and maybe want a little more of that freneticism in that ground floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I assume that that you've heard the term carpet or mat housing, Charlotte.
Yes. Yeah.
And so clearly that you've been very successful in creating this kind of texture that runs from city block edge to block edge, and then different scales of aperture in between. And I've always had a fondness for that housing typology. Very difficult to achieve, but a very a really interesting set of efforts. I don't know. I kind of like I like the way the ground floor transforms into the upper floors. If I had and I really think that you've definitely worked the edges of the block very powerfully to make them advance the city edge, the edge of the perimeter, in ways that I think are mostly pretty positive. I suspect that the circulation to all the different entries could be clarified. I think the circulation is the key to getting a map to the pathway system to work. I think my criticism, and maybe that's why I asked in the first, I think that your module is probably too small.
Okay.
Because if I look at your units, they are arguably slightly difficult to inhabit because none of the rooms are bigger than 9 by 10 or 8 by 10, which I don't know, if you had a module that was maybe closer to 10 by 12 or something like that, I have a feeling that it would feel more livable, but maybe it wouldn't have the same texture that you want.
Yes, my first thought was why the module is not square. I mean, it's okay that your grid is based on rectangle, but if I was working on with a rectangle, maybe I could have gone to a more two different dimensions, no, so that you can take advantage of the big one and the small one, or instead going to the square and make it the same dimension in both directions, no. I think that I agree with, and also what Andrew said, that I think that the next steps for these projects will be to work on the exterior spaces, the public and the gardens, and continue with these pixels that occupy the complete project, no? The gardens, the public spaces, the private exterior spaces, and also the facade maybe, and the heights of the building, and it can be very, very interesting exercise, no, for this project. For example, for this well, I think that it's easy to imagine, no? I don't know what is annotated here. Like all in these squares of you can work on the pixels in the different spaces, and also give different qualities. So maybe you have thematic gardens, with one is for orchards, or other is for playing, and other is maybe more public that you offer to the city, and different functions, no, and forms. And also maybe one thing that I like is the contrast between the exterior spaces that are on the edge of the building, and the small spaces inside the building. Mm-hmm. But I think that maybe the green spaces, like here, this in green, these gardens that you have, maybe it can occupy more spaces, and even in the higher levels, no. So maybe you can have more across the through the complete building, no. So that you can enjoy green private spaces. I think I don't know if we can go to upper levels, to upper floors. Yes. I don't know how can I erase all this. I don't find it. Oh, no. Yeah. Yes, because I think that you have again here this kind of patios, green patios, and then you have the terraces of the terraces of the thing that these are private spaces, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are.
Maybe you can also have double heights in those spaces. I don't know if you have. Well, I think that you have here. So those are fine. I mean, I think you can play a lot with this kind of system, because a grid is always a system, no? And you have you can start working on it, and I think that is very interesting.
I kind of like these. I'm not sure which unit I'm looking at, but I'm on the concept board.
Okay.
But it seems like there's one where there's almost like a little separate apartment, sort of. Is that part of the dwelling? Let's see. I'm looking at. If you zoom in to your, maybe I'll find my annotation tools. Can you zoom into any of the fabric that we see in this plan? This okay, you can stop there if you like. Is this I go outdoors. Is this part of this unit? So I go outdoors and then back indoors?
Yes, so that is intended to be the master bedroom. On the second floor, it would be a covered outdoor walkway. The third floor, it would be an uncovered outdoor walkway, which I realized would be an issue, especially in this climate. But I liked the idea of keeping the master bedroom kind of separated from the rest of the home with this nice walkway around it.
Well, that's very unconventional, Charlotte, and I know that you know that. It's also a little unusual to walk through one bedroom to get to the other, although perhaps not in New Orleans, it's not that unusual. And then to walk outside to get to this one. I appreciate the fact that it's inventing. I think you might need to think about in new ways. Like, for example, I would imagine it much more likely to be a guest suite or a little office off of the main body of the unit.
Right.
Who did you imagine living here, Charlotte?
Could I imagine? Or
Students or families?
This largest unit, I was intending for families to live there.
All right. Well, when you have a family, if you choose to at some point, I would bet that you wouldn't put your bedroom in a different building than your children. So just saying.
Yeah, and I think if perhaps it feels like this system, and this is another rant for another day about walk-in closets. I think we're about done as a society with walk-in closets, right? And I just feel like in a module, if you're talking about compactness in a module, to make a walk-in closet that really doesn't work that well with an interior corner, I think, I was agreeing that somehow maybe there's walk-in closet on the front, and then maybe somehow, or maybe there's closet cabinetry at some point, and then a little kitchenette or something. I thought that's where the versatility of the system was. This could be my grandmother, which would be a perfect use of it, like Judith was headed towards. Like, so now, like, I could see it in my next 10 years that my mother's either moving with my brother or myself, and this would be great. I'd stick her right in there, right? She could come visit every now and then go back to the house. So I think it would increase the versatility of your project if we didn't worry about walk-in closets, but more so, making this an opportunity to make a single unit. And then I'll mute because my dog.
But I would say that I like the rigor of this effort, and even the fact that you're blurring conventions. We just rewrite the script so that it works. But I agree with Andrew. But I think that it reminds me in very small ways of that house by Sana in Tokyo, where the bedroom, there's a complete explosion of the idea of house into multiple buildings that are separated by cold air and warm air and rain, all sorts of things.
I think my last one, since we only have a few minutes left, unless I was interrupting Elena, I wasn't sure. You look like you're about to say something. I was just going to say, like, once you put all the modules together, if we're kind of staying where we are, I feel like, was there an opportunity for you to go back and see if there were ways to create more windows to really use these light wells as an opportunity? Like in the modules, they were working fine, but now I kind of want to look back and say, oh, well, this one would be a great place to put glazing. Why is my line weight so thick? I want to undo that. That's a great place for glazing where light could come in, but there's still privacy at the opposite wall. And now maybe if you put that glazing in, go back and see if it fits in the module, or were you strict enough? If this is a kitchen, maybe there's a little slotted window, which would be great to, either allow light or courtyard access. I'm not sure where that courtyard falls, but I think there's an opportunity for way more amounts of glazing to really utilize these interior courtyards. That's what I was going to finish with. Like the drawback, I've got a contractor buddy that will give you a quick estimation on a house by how many corners it has. He knows what number apply to it. And this is like the most corners I've ever seen on a house. And if you're going to do that many corners, which is going to double the cost of the house, and I know cost, that's not fair to bring up in second year, but then what all these corners do afford you is more opportunity to the outside and windows and glazing. So you could, when my contractor buddy says, I'm not going to build that, it's twice as expensive, you could say, yeah, but look at all this natural light, and that's going to increase health and longevity and views. And, you know, so I think my last glaze over so that was my question. I ended with a question. Did you actually then fine tune this once you put the modules together, or was it so be it?
In some instances, yes, and some no, I would say. I agree. There's definitely a lot more places that I think glazed windows could be really, really useful. Yeah, but for the most part, it was kind of, you know.
I know what you were thinking. You're like, oh, I can't ruin my CAD block.
I have to move on to the next student. Thank you so much for the comments. It was great hearing all of them. I will see you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Charlotte, for your presentation too.
Thank you.
Stop sharing. Charlotte, unshare.
Sorry, I totally forgot.
Understandable.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, hi.
And then everybody can see this as well. Awesome. Morning, everyone. My name is Cole Aronson. I am part of Guillermo Lockhardt's section in the second year undergrad. So the name of the project is Azure on the Quad, relating to the fact that this community is focused on college students and wanting it to feel like a college campus. So here is the central isometric showing the surrounding context of the neighborhood. And so looking into the horizontal home, it is a 5-bedroom home for students to live in. And then looking at the vertical home, this was designed for a family of 5, introducing the small spaces and working with the stairs and how to maneuver the building. And the sectional home was talking about the relations between the different rooms and looking at cantilevers and starting with a small ground floor plan. And for the porch analysis, my home was 2705 Palmer. And this kind of exercise just showed the importance of porches and outdoor space, especially in New Orleans. So here is a diagram showing the horizontal home and the sectional home and showing how I've translated them into my 3 different typologies. One being a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2 of them, and a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and a 1-bed, 1-bath. So looking at the site observations, here's the site neighborhood, kind of showing the relationship that you have with your neighbors all in a very small space, and that everybody is kind of sharing the same sidewalks and common spaces. And here looking at the individual block and showing also the connection between the homes that are existing on the original site. Here are a few photos that I took when visiting the site, kind of showing the close connections between the homes and kind of how they were all laid out, along with the existing trees on the site. So the type of community that I'm creating is one for college students. I want it to feel like almost like a college campus. That's where the name of the, sorry, there's a horn outside. Kind of the name of the project comes from, and creating this study slash amenity space for college students. So a few references that I looked at, here is kind of where I derived my vertical cores and kind of movement throughout the individual cores. Here are a few references, how I kind of derived my common outdoor space, introducing these grass hills and a water feature, along with this kind of organic pathway. And then here are a few references talking about my facade and my kind of outer design. So how the project works. Sorry. So on the left, you see a diagram kind of showing the different typologies on the ground floor and the 4 entrances that come into the project or into the block. So the 4 entrances are open to the public and are not gated off in any way. This is kind of to give you that feel of a campus. As you can see, walking around campus, people are walking through, biking, etc., and are going to be able to use that central space. On the right is a diagram showing the dark green, which are the little mounds, the little grass hills, the light green being the various grass along the entire block. And the little pink in the center is the little water feature that's included for people to hang out and enjoy on a hot day. So here's a diagram explaining the movement in one of the vertical cores, showing how you enter it and move in a central and kind of a circular motion to get from unit to unit, with these little shade blockers on each level positioned in different ways to kind of give privacy across from the neighboring people. So here's the ground floor plan. This one is kind of showing that there are 2 on the north side of the block. There's 2 commercial spaces, and there's also in the dark gray you can see the cement path, or the cement path, and also how the bottom 2 cores have an open covered space. The one on the left showing a stage for performances with large stairs for people to sit on. And along with the fact that I wanted to create this kind of organic path to counteract for the orthogonal shape of the individual cores and the units themselves. So here is the second floor plan, which is consistent of all units. There's no common spaces or commercial spaces. And the third floor contains 2 communal kitchens or study areas for students to use. And the 4th floor contains 4 units, which overlook the central area and to kind of give each of the buildings a little bit of a different facade from the street. So here's a first section coming from the south to the north, cutting through 2 different cores, showing that open space on the ground level on the core on the south, and then showing a little gym and common space and the other various units. And in section B, this is cutting from west to east, giving you an overview of that central space and kind of the sizing of that. So the first core is consisted of 2 4-bed, 2 baths, and 2 1-bed, 1 bath. And in the center of the core is kind of an open space with vegetation and trees. And the stair and elevator are located on the side for access to the various floors. The second core is consisted of 4 2-bed, 2 bath. So that core before kind of is introduced into 2 different units, and then it has the same 1-bed, 1 bath. And the third core has 6 1-bed, 1 baths, kind of with that central that central area in the middle of the core. And the fourth one is consisted of 4 1-bed, 1-bath. And so overall, there's 68 units. There's 5 cores, 6 common spaces, 2 commercial spaces, and 3 typologies. The first typology is the 4-bed, 2-bath with a central outdoor space, which is accessible only from the first floor, which has an outdoor table and large steps to sit on, eat, enjoy the outdoors. So the second typology are 2 2-bed, 2 baths. That central outdoor space is not accessible from this level, but the windows are located at 4 feet high, so that it gives the people on the floor below a sense of privacy, but also allows the people on the second level to still have access to that outdoor space visually. And then the third typology is the 1-bed, 1-bath. And the reason why there's 50 total units was kind of relating to not only the coronavirus, but also the way that college students want to live, kind of living on your own and, you know, moving into adulthood is kind of the point of this, along with kind of the social distancing aspect was the reason why I chose to use so many of them. So the experience here is one of my perspectives, kind of showing those grass hills and the movement and the use of all of that central grass space for people to picnic or read or kind of enjoy that common space, kind of like you would on a college campus. And here's another visual from looking down from north to south of the same common area. And then in the third one, it is from one of the balconies on the north unit, and kind of showing the relationship between the balconies and how you are kind of related to your neighbors and also that central area. And here again is the main isometric. And now I'm gonna switch, sorry, to this PowerPoint. Which kind of shows 2 of the unit types and kind of how they fit together. But yeah, thank you so much. And I'll switch back over to concept board.
Oh, will you tell me where you are on the concept board, please, sir?
Yeah, so I'm under the Lockhart section.
Which one is that?
It should be the 3rd row, I think.
It's not easy to see.
Yeah, I should be, I think I'm 3rd row, 2nd one, if I remember correctly. Find it myself. Yes, 3rd row, 2nd one.
Not Abby.
So
Aha. I'm here.
Well, I'll make a comment about, well, by the way, I wanted to start with something positive. I like in your section the way you're manipulating the ground plane and acknowledging the fact that if you're going to have dwellings at the ground level, that you are required to lift that up, both for privacy, but also generally for street flooding and other kinds of things. And I appreciate that that you've drawn the ground line as a fluid and very intentional edge condition, and you've focused on those small mounds in the central area, et cetera. So that seems to be a really positive thing in your project. I think my concern about your project, I guess there would be 2. One is that it feels like the buildings are objects, and the exterior space, which is so important to you, is a resultant. Its form is simply the residue of what is left when you place these figural objects into the project, which is quite different than a typical campus. But then where the quadrangle is everything in a campus setting. But backing up a little bit, and this may be the tricky thing about this project, this notion of the intentional community. Of course, those of us who are Americans, we grew up in this culture, the idea of an intentional community is very foreign to us. The notion of private space, private outdoor space, private homes with very clear marked boundaries, often single family homes, this is our culture. And so, and this is the neighborhood too. So when you start to introduce an intentional community, it creates very conscious critique of that and potentially disruptions, hopefully positive ones, but potentially frictions. And the notion of an intentional community associated with college students in that setting, I see as inherently problematic. College students are a blight on most neighborhoods and are inherently transient, have no investment in the long-term future of a place. So this is just my take on something that's about the project perhaps more broadly, but my critique of that choice, and I don't know how many made that choice within the studio, is that it really makes, in my opinion, it difficult to make positive relationships between the neighborhood and the site.
Yeah, I think I was going to lead off with something similar. And if you're going to do it, perhaps lean into it. Like start to think about, well, maybe if every user is transient and they're here 2 years at the most, because maybe their freshman year they're on campus, maybe then your system should be a little more flexible, less walls and more open space, because you're trying to cater to a user that changes every year or every 2 years, right? Maybe because it's a bunch of students, maybe you focus more on these interiors a little more and do something about the exterior to maybe, like Judith was saying, to kind of mitigate, or just pick one of the strategies. Either intentionally try and invite the neighborhood in to say, look, we're not all bad, we're college students. Maybe there's opportunities where the community and are there job opportunities? Like, do the college students work at some of these places? I think I would, and I know it's really storytelling, but I think if you're going to, like, go ahead and lean in on it. Like in some of these sections, when you were showing about, I keep trying to zoom on your screen. Let me go back to the concept board. What was it? There was your typology plans. Well, I want to do it on a site plan. I guess let's go to that top floor. I wonder, and again, it's been a while since I was in college, but maybe privacy is not necessarily an interest as much as community, maybe in a college student list. And I love this little interior courtyard. And I think I'm not drawing on the one I want here. Are there opportunities that maybe there's a little, are there bridges or balconies in this courtyard, this glass, where people could actually come out and sit and talk to their neighbors across the side, or if it's one big unit, just activate that space and say, if I'm thinking about community, lean into that community and maybe say they want to be more social. So these little interior courtyards maybe have sky bridges or balconies to foster that, the fact that all these unrelated people are living together. Maybe the point is to tie them together, right? Or maybe there's a dance. I just feel like you made housing and are saying it's for college students. And I want to see you get aggressive and lean in to that notion of college students. We could argue that it was easier for you because you didn't have to think about the Jack and Jill suite for the 2 children or where the mother-in-law is going to go, right? You have one user really. And I feel like some of the other students had to negotiate ages and family status and family size and relationships. So if there's maybe something you can say about leaning into this user group, go ahead and I guess respond to that now.
Yeah, I mean, so the intention was for the college students. I guess I focused more on kind of that the outdoor community space kind of, if I can scroll up here, especially on the ground floor, kind of having these two open spaces down here to kind of eat and relax, and kind of this openness, which you were talking about earlier, and trying to show the neighborhood that this is kind of an area where like people are welcome, was kind of the intention of keeping the entire block open, and having, you know, all of these, there's a grocery store on the north, along with a bar and a gym, and these various kitchens that was kind of hoping to invite people in, and this big open green space, which is not present in the entire neighborhood per se, pretty much, to kind of bring people in there. But I can see where the focus of kind of making these internal units more communicative for college students is definitely something that I did not think about very much, and I do see that now. Yeah.
Hi, Cole. Can you zoom a little to see the complete block?
Yeah.
One block. Yeah, this one is. Yeah, that's fine. No, this one. Not.
Oh, the main one.
The main one. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to the concept of the community, because there are college students. I mean, that's the election that you made. So about the design, I think that the choice that you made with the exterior space that is comprised of green spaces that are public to the for the community, it's fine, and then you have your blocks, different blocks. I think that in my opinion it could be great if you had a little more separation to the street, so that those green hills that you have in the center of your block maybe can colonize a little more of the space, maybe less dense, and then arrive to the exterior and have a little more separation, so that this, and also the distance between the buildings, so that you can have exterior green spaces in the complete block, no? So that and this can be a little more like a kind of acoustic isolation between the community and the students, but and also about the aggregation system for your blocks. I think that the units that you have are interesting in the sense that they have a relation with the typologies of the New Orleans, the shotgun houses, and maybe an idea could be that can we go to another an upper floor?
Yeah.
Do this. Can I? Yeah. So then. So you have these small units that are like shotgun houses. I miss maybe a little more movement in the floor plan, so that and a little less symmetry in every block. No, you have symmetry in every block, and maybe you could have a little more movement, and even in the bigger units, maybe you could have had a unit that you can have an exterior space that is looking to the inner core, and another more to the exterior, and then having not different blocks together, so that you can change a little more the position of your blocks, no, and then you can have maybe a little more movement between the exterior of your public green spaces and the buildings, so that your blocks have a little more movement. And another thing is, for example, the access, the fact that you elevate the ground floor. I agree that that's great. It works it's the way it works in New Orleans, and you started working on this block with this maybe more accessible, and that's another part. It can be, you could understood the complete block as and the course of the circulation vertical course as another shotgun, so that your project could be made of rectangles, no, long rectangles that move through the complete block, and then you build your college and your buildings with these rectangles, and then for vertical and for units, and given maybe a little more, in my opinion, a little more distinction between this space and this space. Maybe they are not, if they are not symmetrical, one could be with different characters and for different functions, and given a little, making the project a little more dynamic. No,
Yeah,
I think that it could be like the project for me could be a starting point to continue with these ideas, and that's what I would like to do with this project. But I think that it's very suggesting for this situation, not for the site.
Elena, those are great marks. I wish you would draw in concept boards so the marks stay on the page, because that was, that I think it's because some of those drawings, marks she drew, aren't too far from your project. And where at the beginning, like Judith said, the project kind of looks like these boxes, kind of insular. Once you actually show that hierarchy that maybe you have studied, or maybe with a few shifts are introduced, there's a richness introduced more so in the project. And like Judith was saying with the beginning, which I agree, you can now shift these individual modules and respond to the site and really start to make instances on the site. Talk about one of the things I wanted to say in a similar vein are just zoom in right here where we're talking about. There's a fascinating, and I didn't mean to draw a line. I want to draw backs. Oh, they're not letting me.
Yeah,
there's like a bar here that's a pretty clever idea. It feels like in your scheme where there's a thickened wall, like we just started talking about wall hierarchy in first year right now. And I like how when you look at the scheme, it feels like there's a thickened wall and some smaller walls. And it could be, I'm crossing my fingers, serendipitous, right? Or you have this idea of this thickened bar that people can pass through, that occupies things, that desks are nestled in. Was there a design intent or a strategy to this?
Yeah, so I mean, that was kind of the intention there, was because I didn't want to put too many windows kind of on that interior side, looking into that central area. So I kind of felt that it was a good area to store things, to have little libraries, to put your desk in there, and just kind of all these little nooks going all along the side of the unit. And that was the intention there, yeah.
And maybe this is just I'm trying to make this a different project than it is, but I feel like I was assuming that college students move here to be together and not to be isolated in this community. And I just feel like it's on the wrong side. Like you're making this gold mine of a space, and then to cut all these college students off from it. I was wondering if, and maybe this sounds like me being the crotchety old man, if that bar moves to the outside, maybe it starts to somehow, there's a fair amount of wall here. I wonder, and I'm just drawing stuff right now as as an offset of discussion. Or maybe the bars are on this side or something. If there's an opportunity for those bars to go to the outside, does that start to buffer maybe noise or something from the outside community and put the focus back on the interior if you're having like 12 or 14 college students live together? I don't know. It just feels, I can't decide, you could say, of course, college students want privacy as well, but it sounds like when individuals that don't know each other move together, maybe they are trying to find community.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I think that's a great point. And I guess the intention of the original design was to kind of give that contrast between the central space and then having your own kind of personal kind of space, and then having the windows and the balcony off to the outside. But I do see how shifting everything to kind of have that central, where you still have the connection with your neighbors and that central space in the core. That's a great point.
Yeah, I almost seeing this like being a plaza and two smaller light wells on either side. And if you flip that scheme and all this glazing is here, maybe it opens out and students can eat together. But I don't want to make this a project that's different. You could tell maybe I'm trying to make it like, I don't know. I just want you to lean in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this valuable feedback. We have to wrap up, but another instructor will come to listen to the presentations and the feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, Guillermo.
Bye.
So next up we have Ian Shaw. Ian, are you all set?
Yeah.
Oh, and Andrew is leaving. So bye, Andrew. Hi,
Right.
Lena.
Hi, sorry.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, and y'all can see this presentation? Can y'all see this presentation? Or?
Yep. Yes, we see it.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ian Shaw. I'm a student in Carrie Norman's section. So Mini City is an intentional community with the intent of creating a microcosm of the city of New Orleans. This means that instead of creating a space that brings people together with one specific shared value or characteristic, this focuses on bringing together all walks of life that are represented in the city of New Orleans. So here's the isometric. And so this was the site before the intentional community was placed here. And this is what it looks like afterwards. And the most important way that this concept of focusing on New Orleans manifests in the housing development is on the ground floor, which hosts all the public programs. So these public amenities were chosen with a few things in mind. One of which was that these amenities would highlight characteristics that make New Orleans a beautiful city. So examples of programs that do this would be the public recording studio for musicians to use recording equipment for free, a restaurant with a stage, a po' boy deli in the back of the grocery store, a crawfish fishing pond, private kitchen for culinary businesses, and so on. And the second thing that was important in choosing these programs for me was that because this development was supposed to be a microcosm of the city of New Orleans, it should host the typical everyday programs that are scattered throughout cities, such as churches, libraries, gardens, sitting areas, things that are not necessarily unique to New Orleans, but are just things that you find in every city. So another factor that I considered in choosing these programs that you can see in this diagram was that some of them would be beneficial for families and others would be beneficial for younger adults, others would be beneficial for students. And so that way everyone gets to benefit from the programs equally. So I guess, so yeah, this diagram, I don't know if it's evident by the key that I put up over on the right side, but the lighter red shows lower traffic. The lighter colors show lower traffic, darker colors show higher traffic, and then more red on the hue is programs that are pertain to families, and then more blue on the hue is programs that pertain more to younger adults and students. Let's see, and this next diagram, that first diagram, this was on the first floor, obviously, but it's all the public programs. The second diagram is the second floor where the residential units are situated. And you can kind of see how the red in this diagram are the family units, blue are the younger adult units. You can kind of see how there's a correlation between the public programs that are on the first floor and the residential units that are situated above them. So because of this, there's kind of like neighborhoods that are created. The two main ones obviously are the younger adult neighborhood, younger adult and student neighborhood, and the family neighborhood. And so this is a more detailed plan at the second floor. You can see in this diagram how all of the entrances to the residential units on the second floor are connected by a grid of elevated sidewalks. And this is a perspective that I created to show kind of that relationship between the elevated sidewalk and the expansive public program on the first floor. And something that inspired this kind of relationship between the second floor and the first floor was in the French Quarter of New Orleans, how you can kind of be situated in the galleries and balconies and kind of feel peaceful and be in these private areas, but still be able to look down into the busyness and chaos of the public realm of the first floor. One more thing is, in this plan, you can also see, because of the grid, the grid of elevated sidewalks, it's alternating between units, and there's going to be a hole that, like, you can see down into the public program of the first floor. So kind of like a checkerboard. And then just one thing I want to point out in this perspective is all of the units, the porches of the units always are either adjacent to another porch or are right across from another porch. So you can always say hi to your neighbor or have a conversation with them before you make your way to work or go on your daily runs. All right, so before I start talking about the unit types, this was the vertical home that I created, the project before the segregation project. And for this, I just want to talk a little, for this one in the horizontal home, I want to talk a little bit about what what elements from these inspired the aggregation project. Specifically from this one, on each floor, the perimeter is entirely encompassed by glass. And just outside of that glass, there's a wall of vines that are held up by wires and kind of extruded mullions. And so the reason for doing this was to give privacy to the unit while also letting light in. And then on top of that, you can, while you're inside the unit, you kind of feel like you're in a forest when you look around. So that's something from this project that I really liked that I wanted to carry forward to the aggregation project. And this was the horizontal home project that I worked on. And from this, I thought it was really successful how the units all shared the common kitchen and eating area in the middle. And then there was also these secondary spaces where that are kind of semi-private, semi-public, the 2 units share, where you can hang out and like smaller group gatherings would occur. So that kind of arrangement was something I wanted to carry forward to the aggregation project. And then here are the units. One type is the family unit. You can see the porch. There's dining and kitchen and living areas, and then upstairs are the bedrooms. So that's 2 stories. The entrance is on the 2nd floor, like all the other units. But the entire unit is both floors. And then on the other hand, the smaller units are for younger couples or just younger adults. And each floor has 2 units that both share a porch and a kitchen, dining room, eating area. And then the 3rd unit is the student housing. And on this one, the entire 1st floor, and although the 1st floor is for the entire site is supposed to be public amenities, this is the one exception where you have the kitchen and eating areas and living areas for the student housing on the 1st floor. And then the 2nd and 3rd floor have 4 units each that each share semi-private balconies in between them and are accessed by a courtyard with a vertical core. And yeah, that's all. This is the isometric again for reference. Thank you for listening.
Ian, perhaps you could bring us to your concept board.
Okay, I actually cannot log in the concept board on my computer, on this computer for some reason. So maybe if there's someone else who can, I'm not sure, log on to the concept board.
Or the jurors can also navigate to the concept board as well. I'm happy to share my screen if that helps and navigate to the concept board.
Okay, yeah, I'll stop sharing real quick.
Ian, what is your module? It looks like what, about 30 feet or 25?
Yeah, it's 30 feet.
Well, your first of all, comment about your drawings. They're quite lovely, particularly the perspective drawings.
Thank you.
I'm working through the understanding the plans more fully. But if I understand it correctly, each of these cubic volumes or masses might have a single house or might have 4 units, right? Or 2 units?
4 units, yes, that's correct.
And so I did have a question about the circulation. Is all the circulation at the 2nd floor? In other words, the matrix of the grid of circulation. So if I were going to an upper level unit, do I have a kind of private stair that gets me off of that to go up?
Right, so there is no, like, in one of the units, there's no connection in between the 1st floor and the 2nd floor. So you do have to first access the grid of circulation on the 2nd floor via a public staircase. And then using that grid, make your way to your private unit.
Can you just zero in on, in the matrix of how you would find your front door if you were going to the 3rd floor?
Okay, so down on the bottom right.
Oh, you can't move in because you're not the orchestrator of this.
So
Ian, you could use the annotation tools if that helps.
Okay.
So that little stairway. This is the porch, and I walk up that stairway to get
right.
to
Okay. Yeah. So that is that's the private staircase that connects the 2nd floor to the 3rd floor, and that's just the 2nd floor has 2 units that share that first porch and the kitchen in the back, and the staircase is directly connected to the porch. And that staircase accesses the 2 units on the 2nd floor.
Well, I think it's an interesting scheme. First of all, your description of it as a kind of miniaturization of the city is interesting. And this notion of a kind of, we talked earlier about map projects, which create a kind of carpet of voids that create a kind of continuous texture. You can read yours as an inversion of that, at least at the upper levels, where you see a continuous set of figures that create another kind of reading of the city relative to these upper level pathways that become in essence, a kind of miniaturization of the 300 by 300 foot urban block of the city. So, which is a challenging approach, of course, because you're, when you miniaturize this, you're completely surrounded by circulation. I think your effort to erode the perimeter of those masses to create a kind of porch-like space, both to modulate entry and also to create some kind of sense of outdoor private outdoor space, I guess, in this world of continuous path, I think was a good effort. So I love the idea, and I think it's been skillfully handled. I must say that second floor walkway the second floor walkway system is both, you know, essential to your scheme and somewhat terrifying. If I were to move your scheme forward, I might try to figure out how much of it could be eliminated. In other words, could some of these courtyards weld onto these figures so that the pathway network wouldn't have to be so ubiquitous, so surrounding?
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Elena, I believe you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Ian. I agree that the graphics are really sensitive and lovely. They show the perspective, so the atmosphere of your project, and also the floor plans. I think you have a sensitivity for the drawing the plans. And well, I think that you went with your project with all the consequences of the grid, no? And that's radical. And I think that it has some consequences that some can be positive, some can be maybe negative, or doesn't have to be negative, depending how you want to live, no? And then the fact that you have always the corridors, no, in front of your houses. But one point that I was thinking when you were explaining the project was that if you have your mini cities are comprised by college the houses for college students and then for families, no? Those two, maybe I think that those two typologies maybe could have I don't know, different another, if your college, I was trying to move my participants screen here, so the college buildings, sorry, I cannot do this. No. So the dorms for the students, I think that they have they give a different scale to the project, so something happens around them. So I think that they create a centrality, and you choose to place them on the perimeter in this kind of aisle in between Gina and Baron Street, and I think that one option could be like playing with the different position of these buildings for the students, in maybe placing one here or another here, and then you have vectors of different activities, no? And but if you want to place them all together, different things could happen in the surroundings, no? And also at the end of the corridors, no? Or maybe here, no? And not being so rigid with your grid. So you can be radical in the sense of having your grid, but then maybe it's, and that's only a possibility, and then you choose to your project. It's just an idea to have different uses in the surroundings or things with that happens in between, no? And in those intermediate spaces, no? As you have started to do here, for example, for the community or for those spaces to socialize. So then having another quality so that you can make another use and not having all these stairs here, so you can socialize there. And maybe, I don't know if it's a good idea to have, for example, these houses between these two these two houses between the dorms. I don't know if they are in disadvantage in relation to the others. So maybe if you don't have a third typology, maybe what you could have is another maybe public spaces that start occupying the surroundings of the dorm, so that they have a kind of mixed use and maybe I don't know, I don't find the word, no, but I think that you can understand that what I'm trying to say, no, like a different condition, no, to change to a transition between the different uses.
Yeah, I do actually have 2 examples of where public program did make its way to the second floor, where like a cafe or a bar might have needed a second floor, and because of that, it has access to the residential areas. But I like what you're saying about kind of creating a kind of a system for that instead of just doing it randomly like what I have now.
But I think that, I mean, the project is lovely, and I think that the idea of having that grid and you place your different blocks and there with the patios and you have shown very well with your perspective, no, the ambient and the atmosphere of those spaces, no. But I think that I will develop a little more to study those connections, no, between the different uses.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are really good comments. I loved that diagram you made. I didn't know you could make such good diagrams with the Zoom annotation tool. But it is a great project. And I suppose when you think about this notion of the city, and its miniaturization, sure, the grid is pivotal to many American cities, but then the effort to disrupt it at critical moments to create hierarchies within the street network then ensues. You know, in other words, the grid becomes something that needs to be manipulated in subtle ways. And so you've done it in a few areas. So I think you have you have the sort of toolbox. It just maybe could enjoy just a bit more of that.
Yeah.
These are great comments, Ian. I really believe this project is a fantastic showcase of how architecture can really develop in multiple mediums. The perspectives that you've developed they almost behave like evidence. And I really think they developed beautifully, and they also reveal the way in which you think about the project in such great depth. And the project is so thoroughly considered so thoughtfully considered at multiple scales. I've really appreciated working with you all semester and really appreciating the degree to which you care and consider the multiple scales of housing and so forth. So Ian, I want to commend you on a really well-resolved, well-developed project, and really just a terrific semester at large. I really look forward to seeing what you are up to after this.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciated having you as a professor.
Well, thank you to our jurors, Elena and Judith. I'm sure we'll be joined, as the pattern has been going, by another critic, and I'll peel off. But if there are any more comments, we do have a little bit more time.
I was wondering if you had looked at any of the projects by people like O.M. Ungers in the, I suppose, neo-rationalist, early postmodernist efforts, often in New York. Like there's a project in Roosevelt City that takes the Manhattan grid and condenses it, maybe brings the scale down to maybe 10%, and recreates Central Park and the 200 by 800 foot grid of Manhattan on this little sliver island adjacent to Manhattan. It's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah, Ian, last thing I'll say, and just we have a couple more minutes. You have a real sensitivity to spaces that I've really enjoyed seeing develop across the semester. And so just starting from the earlier homes and moving into here. So it's something to take note of and continue to cultivate as you move forward.
Okay.
You know, one other thing I'd add, I don't know how much time we have, is that this strategy works really well in the texture of New Orleans, because New Orleans almost feels like a real city that has been scaled down to some kind of miniaturization, where you create urbanity with tiny buildings, and of course they're all sort of atomized, often with 12 foot or less, sometimes 24 frontages towards the street. So your strategy, I left for a couple of minutes and then came back, so someone may have already made this comment, but your strategy feels contextual in ways that are, in my opinion, very positive.
Thank you.
I had last semester a project that was working in the same direction as this one, and it was with different, it had a grid, but it was growing grid. So it started with the small pieces in the perimeter and bigger in the center or in other areas. But I think that in this project that you can have, if you can make a zoom of in the block, this one or this one, the other one. So you can have your grid, and then you can have a secondary grid, smaller, and use it to differentiate, because your blocks or your boxes, or I think that they behave almost like in the same way towards all the facades. So if you had maybe a second smaller grid, you could suddenly create very different responses, no, to one orientation or to another, or towards your dorms, or maybe towards to have more privacy between the existing buildings and the public space of the views or the sunlight or whatever. Just as a comment to have more ideas, but I love this project. I like it a lot.
Would that be possibly like a way to calibrate the different unit types, like the different sizes for the different unit types could maybe be in different grids like that? Is that what you're suggesting? Or
I mean, you can have a very regular grid, very homogeneous, or suddenly you can add more layers and more information to your project, and then a lot of things happens. No, but it can be very abstract or very dynamic. No, both are different options that can be good options, but.
Well, since actually this is, Ian, you're the last student. I just pulled up the list again. So the jurors are invited to join again at noon. So I need to jump off to catch my last student of the morning session. So I just want to thank you all, to the students, and thank you to our jurors, and have a terrific rest of your day.
Great. See you all soon.
See you
in the main room.